The city was silent, but it was not the silence of peace. It was the silence of death, of smoke curling into the sky, of broken walls and shattered glass, of 1,000 voices that would never speak again, in the ruins of that city, under a sky. Covered in ash, a girl sat alone, her knees pulled close to her chest, her body shaking from cold and hunger. She was not human. Her eyes glowed faintly in the dark, her skin pale like silver under the moonlight, and her hair long but tangled with dirt. She had once been part of a family, part of a people, but now she had nothing left. The war had taken everything from her. Her mother was gone, her father's voice silenced, her little brother buried beneath. Stone and fire, she remembered their screams. She remembered the heat of the flames, but most of all, she remembered the moment she realized she was truly alone. The villagers who remained in the broken city whispered about her kind. They called her cursed, dangerous, not worth saving. To them, she was a reminder of defeat, of everything they had lost. Some said she should not even be alive, so the girl hid in the ruins, afraid to be seen. She had not eaten for days, her lips dry, her hands trembling as she searched for scraps of food. But there was nothing, only broken wood, burned cloth, and sharp stones. Her thin dress did not protect her. From the cold night air, every breath she took felt like ice in her chest. She wanted to give up. She wanted to close her eyes and let the night take her away. But a part of her refused. A small spark deep inside whispered that maybe, just maybe, someone would care enough to help. That night, the wind grew stronger, carrying with it the sound of footsteps. The girl froze, her heart beating fast. She pressed herself deeper into the rubble, afraid the villagers had found her. She had heard their threats before. They caught her, she would not live to see another sunrise. The footsteps came closer, steady and heavy. Then she saw it. A flicker of light moving between the ruined houses, a lantern swinging gently in the hand of a stranger. The girl held her breath, her eyes wide. The figure was tall, broad-shouldered. Wrapped in a long coat against the cold, his face was shadowed, but his movements were cautious. Careful, he was not a villager. She could tell by the way he walked. He did not belong to this broken place. It was a human. For a long moment, the girl and the man did not move. He stood in the middle of the ruined street, holding his lantern. Scanning the rubble as if he knew someone was there, she sat hidden, trembling, wondering if she should reveal herself or stay silent. Then, his eyes found her. The lantern light fell on her face, and she flinched. Trying to turn away, she expected him to shout, to call her a monster, to throw stones like others had. But instead, the man only stared. His eyes widened, not in anger, but in surprise. The girl's lips parted, her voice weak and hoarse. She wanted to say something, but no sound came out. All she could do was look at him with those empty, tired eyes that had seen too much pain. The man took a step closer. The wooden boards cracked under his boots. His lantern swayed, lighting up more of his face. He looked older than she expected, not old with age, but with weariness. His jaw was strong, his beard rough, his eyes sharp, but not cruel. He studied her carefully. As if deciding what to do, he could walk away, pretend he had seen nothing. That would be the safe choice, the easy choice. But he did not walk away. The girl blinked. Confusion mixing with fear. Why was he still there? Why was he looking at her like she was not a curse, not a burden, but simply a lost child? He crouched down slowly, setting the lantern on the ground so its glow spread across the broken stones. Then he reached into his coat and pulled something out, a piece of bread, wrapped in cloth. The smell hit her instantly. Warm, real food. Her stomach tightened painfully. Her mouth dry, she stared at the bread. Then at him. She could not move. Not yet. The man extended his hand, offering it to her. His voice, when he finally spoke, was low but calm. "You'll freeze out here," he said. "Take it." Her fingers twitched. She wanted to grab it, but she hesitated. Every time someone had come close before, it had ended with pain, with cruelty. But this man's voice was different. His tone carried no hate, no judgment, only simple concern. She reached out slowly, her hand trembling as she touched the bread. She pulled it back quickly, clutching it to her chest as if afraid he would change his mind. Tears stung her eyes. She could not remember the last time someone had shown her kindness. The man watched her for a moment, then picked up his lantern. He straightened, his shadow stretching long against the ruined wall. He turned slightly as if to walk away, but then stopped. He looked back at her, his eyes meeting hers once more. The girl froze. Still clutching the bread, her heart pounded, her breath shaking. She waited for his final words, for his decision, and he said only one thing: no one should be left alone like this. The lantern light flickered, the cold wind howled, and in that moment, the girl realized her life had changed. The man had seen her when no one else would. He had given her something no one else dared hope, but she did not yet know. This was only the beginning. The bread was still in her hands, warm against her cold fingers. She held it tightly, as if it was the most precious thing left in the world. The human stood a few steps away, the lantern's glow casting his shadow long across the broken stones. For a long moment, neither spoke. The girl's silver eyes watched him carefully. Waiting, half afraid he would change his mind and take it back. He did not. Instead, he shifted his lantern to his other hand and looked around, as if to make sure. No one was watching. "You shouldn't be here," he said at last, his voice low. Not harsh, but heavy. "If they see you, they'll—" He did not finish the sentence, but she knew the end of it well. They would beat her, maybe kill her. The villagers had made that clear many times before. The girl's lips trembled, but no words came. Her throat was too dry, her voice too weak. She only pulled her knees closer to her chest, clutching the bread as if it was her only shield. The man exhaled slowly, then crouched again so he was closer to her level. His eyes studied her face, her hollow cheeks, her tangled hair, her trembling hands. He looked at her not as a monster, not as an enemy, but as something fragile that the world had already broken. "Eat," he said gently. "You need it." Her heart pounded. She hesitated, then slowly, carefully. She lifted the bread to her lips. The first bite made her close her eyes. It was dry, rough, but to her it tasted like life itself. Her chest tightened, tears welled, and before she knew it, she was sobbing silently as she ate. The man looked away for a moment, giving her space, but he stayed close. He could have left. He should have left, but something about the sight of her alone, broken, still fighting to survive, kept his feet in place. When she had finished, she wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, afraid to meet his gaze, afraid he would see her. "Weakness, what's your name?" he asked suddenly. She froze. No one had asked her that since before the war. No one had cared. She opened her mouth, but no sound came, only a broken whisper. "L. Lyra." The man nodded once. "Lyra," he repeated softly, as if testing the name on his tongue. Then he leaned back, his hand tightening on the lantern handle. "I'm Callan." The girl blinked. A name. He had given her his name. It felt strange, almost unreal. Names were things shared between people, between those who mattered to each other. He was not supposed to care, and yet he had. But kindness was dangerous. Both of them knew it. A sudden sound echoed through the ruins' voices, rough and angry. Lyra's body tensed. Her breath quickened. She knew those voices. The villagers were searching again, torches in hand, calling out threats. Callan's jaw tightened. He stood quickly, his coat shifting as he pulled it tighter around himself. He looked down at the girl, who was staring at him in terror. "They can't find you," he said, his voice firm now. Stay close to me." Her eyes widened. She shook her head desperately. "No." "They'll hurt you," she whispered. "They'll call you traitor." Callan looked at her for a long second, then shook his head. "Let them," he said. "I won't let them hurt you." The words struck her like fire. For so long she had been told she was nothing, a burden, a curse. Now here was a human someone who should have been her enemy choosing to stand between her and the world. The voices grew louder, closer. Callan grabbed the lantern and motioned for her to follow. She hesitated, fear gripping her legs. But when he reached back and took her hand, firm but not cruel, she felt warmth again. Warmth she thought she would never feel. Together they slipped through the ruins, keeping to the shadows. The villagers' torches burned in the distance, their shouts echoing through the broken city. Lyra clung to Callan's hand, her heart racing. She had not trusted anyone in so long. But his grip was steady, guiding her, protecting her. They ducked behind a fallen wall as a group of men passed nearby. The flames of their torches licked the dark sky. The men cursed loudly, speaking of the cursed one, promising that if they found her, they would end her for good. Lyra trembled, her eyes shut tight. But Callan's hand pressed lightly against her shoulder, steadying her, telling her without words that she was safe. When the men passed, Callan leaned closer, whispering, "We need to get out of here." She nodded, still clutching his hand, step by step. They moved away from the ruined heart of the city. The air grew colder, but Lyra barely felt it anymore. The warmth of his hand was enough. Finally, when the voices had faded into the distance, Callan stopped. He set the lantern down, his eyes scanning the shadows before turning to her. "You can't stay here," he said firmly. "They'll never stop hunting you." Her chest tightened. She wanted to ask, "Where can I go?" But the words stuck in her throat. She had no home, no family, nowhere to belong. Callan's gaze softened. He saw the despair in her eyes, the silent cry for help. He let out a slow breath and nodded to himself, as if making a decision that would change everything. "You'll come with me," he said at last. Her heart stopped. She stared at him, unable to believe what she had heard. "With you?" She whispered, "Yes." He replied simply, "I can't leave you here, Lyra. Not like this." Tears spilled down her cheeks, hot against the cold night. She wanted to thank him, but no words were enough. All she could do was nod, weak but certain. Callan picked up the lantern, holding it high. His shadow stretched once more across the ruins. But this time he was not alone. The girl walked beside him, her small steps quick to keep up. The night was still dangerous, the path uncertain. But for the first time since the war began, Lyra felt something she thought was lost forever. Hope, and she knew it was because of him. The night passed slowly, cold and restless. Callan had led Lyra far from the ruined heart of the city. They had crossed broken streets, silent alleys, and fields of ash, until they found a small, abandoned storehouse on the edge of town. Inside, the air smelled of dust and old wood, but it was better than the open streets, better than being seen. Lyra sat against the wall, wrapping herself in his cloak. Her body still shook, but not as much as before. Callan sat near the door, lantern dimmed, listening to the night. His eyes stayed sharp, alert. Because he knew it was not over, the villagers would not forget. And he was right. By morning, whispers had begun to spread, in the market, by the wells. In the broken taverns where tired men gathered, voices spoke of what they had seen. The human gave her food. He touched her hand. He hid her from the torches. The whispers grew like fire in dry grass. Some said Callan was bewitched. Others called him a traitor. And some spat his name with disgust. Lyra did not hear those words directly, but she felt them in the way shadows moved outside the broken windows, in the way footsteps lingered too. long near the storehouse, in the way the air itself grew heavy with suspicion. Inside, she hugged the cloak tighter, her silver eyes fixed on the wooden floor. "They know," she whispered softly. "They know you helped me." Callan glanced at her, his jaw tightening. He had known this risk the moment he chose not to. Leave her in the ruins. Still, hearing her trembling voice made the weight heavier. "Let them talk," he muttered. "Their words can't harm you here." But they both knew it was not true. Words could turn into torches, into blades, into mobs. That evening, Callan went out to find food. Lyra waited alone, the silence pressing against her chest like a stone. She kept thinking he would not return, that maybe he had changed his mind, that maybe the whispers had convinced him to abandon her. But just when fear had started to claw at her, the door creaked open, and he stepped back inside. Carrying a small sack of bread and dried meat, he set it down without a word, his eyes dark, his shoulders tense. "They're watching," he said finally. "Everywhere I went, I felt it. The whispers have teeth now." Lyra lowered her gaze, shame burning inside her. "Because of me," she whispered. "If they hate you, it's because of me." He looked at her sharply. "No," he said, his voice firm. "They hate because it's easier than seeing the truth. You're just a girl, Lyra. You did nothing wrong." Her lips parted, but she could not speak. No one had ever defended her like that, not even before the war. His words settled inside her like a fragile flame, small but warm, that night as the wind rattled the wooden walls. Lyra dreamed of the fire that had taken her family. She woke up in a quiet sob, only to find Callan sitting awake, lantern low. Watching the door like a silent guardian, he noticed her tears but did not speak of them. Instead, he slid the sack of food toward her. "Eat," he said again, his voice softer this time. "You'll need strength." Days passed, and with each day, the whispers grew louder. Rumors twisted into accusations. Accusations sharpened into threats. Callan could hear them when he moved through the streets. "He hides the cursed one. He will bring ruin on us. If he does not hand her over, we'll make him regret it." Once, as he walked past the blacksmith's shop, two men stood outside muttering. They fell silent when they saw him, but their eyes were filled with anger. One of them spat on the ground as he passed. Callan returned to the storehouse that night with his fists clenched. "It won't be long before they come," he told her. Lyra's heart froze. She had feared this moment, feared it every second since he found her. Her hands shook as she clutched the cloak tighter. "You should let me go," she whispered. "If I leave, they won't hate you anymore." Callan stared at her, his jaw hard. "Do you think I care about their hate?" he asked. "Do you think I saved you just to throw you back to them?" Her eyes filled with tears. She shook her head slowly. "But why?" she asked in a broken voice. "Why risk everything for me?" For a long time, he did not answer. He only looked at her, the lines of his face sharp in the lantern's glow. Then, finally, he said, "Because no one should be hunted for existing, because no one should carry that kind of loneliness." The words struck her deeper than anything else had. She pressed her face into her hands and cried, not from pain this time, but from something else. Something unfamiliar relief. Later, when the night deepened, Callan shifted closer to where she sat. She was curled up under the cloak, still trembling. From her tears, he spoke low, almost like a promise. "As long as I'm breathing, they won't touch you." Her eyes widened at those words. She turned to him, searching his face. There was no lie there, no hesitation. Only the heavy truth of a man who had already made his choice. For the first time, Lyra felt safe enough to whisper something she had not said to anyone since the war began. A single word, soft and shaky, but full of meaning. "Thank you." And though the night outside was filled with whispers of hate, inside that small storehouse there was something else, a fragile bond, growing stronger with every passing hour. But whispers? once born, do not stay in the dark forever. And soon, the villagers' anger would no longer be words. It would come for them both. The whispers no longer stayed as whispers. They grew teeth. They grew claws. By the fourth night, Callan could already feel the shift in the air. The villagers were not just talking now. They were preparing. He knew it when he walked back through the market that day. Men stood in tight groups, speaking with low voices. A few carried tools, iron rods, axes, sharp farming blades, things that were not for fields, but for blood. When his eyes met theirs, the groups fell silent, but the hatred in their stares spoke louder than words. By the time he returned to the storehouse, he had no doubt left in his mind they would come. Soon Lyra sat near the window, knees hugged to her chest. Her silver eyes lifted when he entered. Her face was pale, her lips pressed tight. "They're going to find us, aren't they?" she whispered. Callan closed the door behind him. Bolting it shut, he set down the sack of food he carried: bread, dried fruit, nothing much, but enough to keep her alive. "Yes," he said honestly. His voice was calm, but heavy. "We can't stay here any longer." Her hands clutched the cloak tighter. Fear shimmered in her eyes, but beneath it was something else to trust. Trust that if he said they would leave, then maybe they had a chance. That night, they left the storehouse. Behind, the moon was high, the air sharp with cold. Callan led her through the broken fields. His lantern dimmed, so its glow barely touched the ground. Lyra walked close, her small hand gripping his coat. Every sound in the night tan owl's cry, the snap of a branch, made her flinch. Behind them, faint shouts carried on the wind. Torches lit the far side of the town. The hunt had begun, faster. Callan whispered. His steps were steady, careful. But he knew they had little time. They crossed an old wooden bridge, its planks groaning under their weight. Below, the river ran black and cold. Lyra's breath shook as she looked down. The memory of drowning flames in her mind, but Callan's hand on hers pulled her back to the moment, guiding her safely across on the other side. They moved into the forest. The trees stood tall and dark, branches twisting like arms against the moon. Shadows swallowed them, but Callan welcomed the darkness. It was cover. It was safety. For hours, they walked, Callan leading, Lyra following close. Her legs grew weak, her body heavy with exhaustion. But she did not complain, not once. She was too afraid that if she spoke, her voice would break the fragile silence, keeping them safe. Finally, near dawn, they stopped by a cluster of rocks. Callan helped her sit, her body trembling from both cold and fear. He lit a small fire, just enough for warmth. His eyes stayed sharp, scanning the trees for any sign of movement. Lyra looked at him across the flickering flames. "Why do they hate me so much?" she asked softly. Her voice carried the weight of a child who could not understand why the world had chosen her for such cruelty. Callan looked at her. His face was hard in the firelight, but his voice was steady. "Because fear makes people cruel, because they think hurting you will heal what they lost. They're wrong." Her throat tightened, tears blurred her vision. But when she looked at him, sitting there like a wall against the darkness, she felt something she had not felt in a long time. Safe. Hours later, when the fire had died to embers, the sound of dogs shattered the quiet, barking, wild and sharp. The hunt had reached the forest. Lyra's body froze, terror flooding her chest. She clutched Callan's arm, her voice shaking. "They're coming." Callan grabbed the lantern and threw dirt over the fire, smothering the glow. "Stay close," he whispered. His hand found hers again, firm and steady. They ran, weaving between trees, leaping over roots, the sound of dogs and men echoing closer. Torches flickered through the trees. Shouts rang out. There, in the woods. Lyra's breath tore through her lungs. Her legs ached, but she pushed on. The forest was alive with danger. branches clawing at her dress, roots trying to trip her, yet each time she stumbled. Callan's grip pulled her back up, never letting her fall behind. Finally, they reached a deep ravine. A broken tree had fallen across it, forming a narrow bridge of tangled wood. Callan stopped, scanning it quickly. It was dangerous, but it was their only chance. "Go," he told her, motioning to the log. Quickly, her eyes widened. "I'll fall," she whispered, staring at the sharp rocks below. "You won't," he said firmly. His eyes locked on hers, steady as stone. "I'll be right behind you." Shaking, Lyra crawled onto the log, each step slow, her arms out for balance. The wind rushed past. Her heart thundered below. The ravine seemed endless. Behind her, Callan moved carefully, his lantern tied to his belt, his hands outstretched, guiding her. "Don't look down," he whispered. "Just keep moving." Halfway across, the dogs reached the ravine's edge. Barking furiously, torches lit the trees, and men shouted curses into the dark. Lyra gasped, almost losing her footing, but Callan's voice cut through her panic, low and commanding, eyes forward. "Lyra, don't stop." With trembling steps, she reached the other side, collapsing to her knees. Callan followed swiftly, pulling her up. Together, they vanished into the trees again, leaving the shouts behind. When at last they stopped, hidden deep in the forest, Lyra clung to him, her small body pressed against his chest, her tears soaked into his coat. "They'll never stop," she whispered. "They'll never stop hunting me." Callan wrapped his arms around her, his voice firm against her hair. "Then I'll never stop protecting you." And though the night still echoed with distant shouts, in that moment, Lyra believed him. She believed that as long as she stayed by his side, she would not be alone, but deep in the forest. The hunt had only just begun, and both of them knew the real danger was still ahead. The forest did not rest, even when the shouts faded far behind them. The trees groaned with the wind, and the night air carried the smell of rain. Callan led Lyra deeper into the woods, each step chosen with care, but both of them knew they could not run forever. By the time the sky turned gray, the first drops began to fall. Cold rain pattered through the leaves, darkening the soil beneath their boots. Within minutes, the storm broke fully, the forest alive with water and thunder. Lyra stumbled, her thin dress soaked through. Her teeth chattered as the cold cut into her bones. She wrapped her arms around herself. But the rain was merciless. She shivered so violently that she could barely walk. "Callan," she whispered, her voice weak. I can't." He turned quickly, his jaw tightening when he saw her pale lips and trembling body. She was already close to collapse, and if she fell now, the cold would take her life. Without a word, he pulled her closer and guided her beneath a cluster of tall pines. Their branches gave a little cover, but not enough. Water still dripped down. Running cold over their shoulders, he lowered his pack, setting the lantern down. But there was no wood dry enough to light a fire, no roof to block the storm, only the two of them pressed against the roots of the trees. Lyra hugged her knees, her eyes shut tight. "It's so cold," she whispered. Her breath came out in white puffs, weak and shallow. Her silver skin had lost its faint glow. As if the storm itself was stealing the life from her, Callan knelt. In front of her, his own clothes soaked. He knew the truth: if she slept like this, she might never wake again. He took a slow breath, then unfastened his heavy coat. He draped it around her shoulders, but even that was not enough. She still shook violently, her lips turning blue. "Listen to me, Lyra," he said firmly, his voice cutting through the storm. "If you stay like this, you'll die. Do you understand?" Her eyes fluttered open, filled with fear. She nodded weakly, but her body had no strength left. Callan hesitated only a moment before moving closer. He sat down beside her and pulled her gently against him, wrapping his arms around her small frame. His coat covered them both, his chest pressed against her back. His body heat's the only shield against the biting cold. Lyra gasped softly at the sudden warmth. At first, her instincts screamed to pull away. No one had ever held her like this before. No one had ever dared, but the warmth was too real, too strong. Her body melted into his arms, her trembling slowly easing. She buried her face against his chest, her small hands clutching the fabric of his shirt. "Why?" she whispered through chattering teeth. "Why are you doing this for me?" Callan looked down at her, his jaw set. His voice was low, but steady, because no one deserves to freeze alone. "Not you, not anyone." Her eyes burned with tears. Not from the cold, but from his words. For so long she had been treated as nothing, less than nothing, and now here was someone holding her as if she mattered more than his own safety. The storm raged around them, wind howling through the trees, thunder rolling across the sky, but inside his arms, Lyra felt something she had not felt since her family was alive. Safety, warmth, belonging. She pressed closer, whispering so softly he almost missed it. "I thought I was nothing. I thought no one would ever care again." His grip tightened slightly, his chin brushing the top of her wet hair. "You're not nothing," he said firmly. "Don't ever believe that." Her tears spilled, mixing with the rain on her cheeks. She had no words, only the steady rhythm of his heart against her ear. Time blurred in the storm. Minutes felt like hours. Callan kept her close, his own body shivering from the cold, but he refused to let go. Every time she trembled, he pulled her tighter. Every time her breath slowed, he whispered her name to keep her awake. At one point, she tilted her head back, her glowing eyes meeting his. "If they find us, they'll kill you too," she whispered. He looked into her eyes, calm even in the storm. "Then they'll have to go through me first." Her lips trembled, but for the first time, she almost smiled. A small, fragile smile in the middle of the storm. Hours later, the rain finally began to ease. The thunder faded into the distance, and the first light of dawn broke through the clouds. Callan loosened his hold slightly, though he did not let go. He looked down at her. Her breathing was steadier now, her skin no longer ice cold. She stirred slowly, blinking at the faint morning light when she realized he was still holding her. Her face flushed with something strange, something new. Her lips parted, but she could not find words. He met her gaze, his expression unreadable. For a moment, silence hung between them, filled only by the drip of water from the leaves above. Then Lyra whispered, so soft it was almost lost to the wind, "Thank you for not letting me die." Callan gave a short nod, his eyes steady on hers. "Don't thank me, Lyra. Just promise me one thing." She blinked. "What?" "Promise me you'll keep walking, no matter how hard it gets," he said. "Because as long as you do, I'll be there to keep you warm." Her throat tightened. She nodded, her tears falling again. But this time they were not from sorrow. They were from the strange, fragile hope blooming inside her chest. The forest still held danger. The villagers would not stop, but for the first time since she lost her family, Lyra no longer felt like she was facing the darkness alone. And in the warmth of his arms, she finally believed she could survive the storm. The storm had passed, but its memory clung to the forest like a ghost. Water dripped from every branch, the ground soft with mud. Dawn's weak light filtered through gray clouds. Lyra walked beside Callan, his coat still wrapped around her shoulders. Every step was heavy, but her heart felt strangely lighter than before. The warmth of his arms still lingered, and it gave her strength to move forward. But safety was an illusion. And by noon, the illusion broke. They had just reached the edge of a clearing when Callan froze. His sharp eyes caught movement between the tree shadows, too many moving with purpose. Torches flared in the damp air, Voices rose. The villagers had found them. Callan. A harsh voice shouted from the trees. You've gone too far this time. Lyra's heart pounded. She gripped his arm, fear returning in waves. Dozens of men stepped into the clearing, their faces twisted with anger. Some carried spears, others axes or farming blades, but their eyes were all fixed on the girl. There she is. One man spat, pointing, the cursed one. Hand her over. Another shouted, you protect her, and you betray us all. The crowd pressed closer, their voices rising. The air burned with hate. Lyra shrank back behind Callan, her breath shaking. She knew this moment would come. She had always known. She whispered brokenly, go, leave me, please. They'll kill you too. But Callan did not move aside. His shoulders squared, his hand resting on the hilt of the blade at his side. His voice rang clear, strong enough to cut through the storm of shouts. No, he said. You'll have to go through me first. The crowd erupted in outrage. Some cursed, some laughed bitterly, but none stepped forward yet. They had expected him to surrender the girl in fear. They had not expected defiance. One of the elders, a gray-bearded man with hollow eyes, pushed to the front. His voice was sharp. Callan, you've lost your mind. She's not one of us. She's a danger. You think saving her will bring your family back? You think she deserves your mercy more than we do? The words cut deep, but Callan did not flinch. His jaw tightened. His eyes fixed on the elder. This girl has done nothing but survive, he said. And you call that a crime? You would kill her because it's easier than facing your own pain. The villagers murmured, some nodding, others shaking their heads. The anger was strong, but doubt flickered in a few eyes. Lyra clutched the coat tighter around her. Her chest ached at his words. He was bleeding for her, not with wounds, but with his courage. And she knew the cost of such mercy. The elder's face twisted with rage. You've chosen your side, then, he growled. He raised his arm, and the villagers surged forward, weapons glinting in the pale light. Callan stepped in front of Lyra fully now. His blade slid free of its sheath, steel catching the glow of the torches. His voice lowered to a growl. Stay behind me, Lyra. The first man lunged with a spear. Callan sidestepped, striking the shaft with his blade. The weapon cracked, splinters flying. The man stumbled back, cursing. Another came, swinging an axe. Callan caught the blow on his sword, sparks flashing as steel met steel. His strength drove the man backward into the mud, but they kept coming. 3, 4, 5 at once. Callan fought with controlled fury. Each movement sharp, each strike meant to drive them back, not kill. His mercy held even here in the face of their hate. Behind him, Lyra trembled. Her hands over her mouth. She could not watch, yet she could not look away. Every blow he blocked was a reminder he was bleeding for her, even if no blood yet fell. He was choosing her again and again when no one else would. Finally, a stone struck Callan's shoulder. He stumbled, gritting his teeth. His breath came hard, sweat mixing with rain still dripping from the trees. The crowd closed in tighter, their fury rising. Lyra could not stay silent anymore. Her voice broke through the chaos, raw and desperate. Please, stop. The mob froze for a moment, their eyes flicking to her. Her small frame, trembling, drenched in the coat too large for her. But her glowing eyes blazed with tears. I never asked for this, she cried. I never wanted to be here. I never wanted your hate. Her voice cracked, echoing through the clearing. For a heartbeat, silence fell. Some of the villagers looked away, guilt flickering, but the elder's eyes burned hotter. She's lying, he roared. Her kind always lies. If we let her live, she bring ruin. He raised his hand again, but Callan's voice thundered louder than the storm. Enough, he shouted. His chest heaved as he glared at the crowd. Look at her. She's just a child, starving, cold, hunted. And you would call yourselves righteous while you break her like an animal. The crowd wavered. Some lowered their weapons, uneasy. But others still burned with anger, torn between doubt and hate. Callan's sword lowered slightly, his voice heavy now, almost breaking. If mercy is a crime, then I'll pay the price. But I will not let you take her. His words cut deeper than his blade ever could. Lyra's tears streamed down her cheeks. She whispered his name, her voice trembling with both fear and awe. He was standing against all of them, not because he had to, but because he chose to, and that choice might cost him everything. The clearing was heavy with silence, broken only by the ragged breath of Callan and the distant drip of rain. His sword trembled slightly in his hand. His shoulders bruised, his coat torn, but still he stood between Lyra and the crowd. The villagers stared at him, their torches flickering, their anger clashing with something else. No doubt they had expected fear, surrender. But instead, they saw a man willing to stand alone against them all. Lyra's soft sobs carried through the air. Her glowing eyes, wide and tear-streaked, looked not at the villagers, but at the man before her. She whispered his name, Callan, as if his very presence was the only shield she had left. The elder's voice broke the silence, sharp and furious. Step aside, Callan. She will bring ruin on us all. If you protect her, then you choose her over your own people. Callan's jaw tightened. His eyes swept over the faces in the crowdmen and women broken by war, by hunger, by loss, people who carried pain but had turned it into hate. He had once felt that same hollow rage. He knew what it was to want something to blame, but now, standing in front of Lyra, he knew something else, something stronger. I choose what is right, he said firmly. His voice was rough but steady. If that makes me your enemy, so be it. But I will not be part of this cruelty. The words struck the crowd like a hammer. Some looked away, their grips loosening on their weapons. Torches lowered, uncertainty spreading. The fire of hate flickered, weakened by the simple weight of truth. The elder's face twisted in rage. He lunged forward with a dagger, his eyes burning with madness, then die with her. The blade slashed toward Callan, but before it could strike, Callan's sword flashed, steel clashing in a sharp ring. In one swift motion, he disarmed the elder, the dagger falling useless into the mud. The villagers gasped, shock freezing them. Where they stood, the elder stumbled, falling to his knees. His hate-filled eyes looked up at Callan, but his voice broke. You'll doom us all. Callan lowered his sword, his chest heaving. His voice was heavy with both anger and pity. No. You doom yourselves when you kill the innocent. Mercy is not weakness. It's the only way we survive. No one stepped forward again. Torches dimmed, weapons lowered, and slowly, one by one, the villagers turned away, dragging the broken elder with them. The mob dissolved into the trees, their whispers fading into silence. Only the rain remained, soft now, gentle against the leaves. Lyra collapsed to her knees, her body trembling. Her tears fell into the mud. She had been ready to die, ready to be dragged away. But instead, she was still here, still breathing. Because one man had chosen her life over his own safety. Callan sheathed his sword and knelt beside her. His rough hand rested on her shoulder. Steadying her, it's over, he said softly. They won't come back, not tonight. She turned toward him, her eyes overflowing. Her voice broke into a whisper. Why? Why would you do this for me? Why risk everything? Callan met her gaze. His face was tired, lined with the weight of the fight. But his eyes were steady. Because you matter, Lyra, he said simply. Because no one should ever be made to believe they are nothing. Her heart clenched at his words. For so long she had believed she was worthless, a curse, a shadow that should not exist. But now someone had told her she was more, and he had proven it with every choice, every scar, every risk. The night gave way slowly to morning. The forest shifted from gray to gold as the first rays of dawn broke through the clouds. The storm was gone, the air clean, the sky brighter than it had been in many days. Callan stood, offering her his hand, for a moment. She hesitated. Her whole life had been loss, betrayal, and pain. But when she looked into his eyes, she saw no hesitation there, only truth. She placed her hand in his, and he pulled her gently to her feet. Together, they walked out of the clearing, leaving the ashes of hate behind. The path ahead was uncertain, but it was theirs now, not hers alone. By midday, they reached the hills beyond the forest. The world opened before them, rolling fields, rivers glinting in the light, mountains faint in the distance. A new world waiting, away from the ruin. And whispers. Lyra stopped, her breath caught in her chest. The sight was more than beauty, was freedom, for the first time since her family was taken. She allowed herself to hope. She turned to Callan, her voice quiet, trembling with both fear and courage. Am I really safe with you? Callan looked at her, his hand still holding hers. His words were simple, but unshakable. For as long as I live. Yes. Her tears fell again. But this time she did not hide them. She leaned into him, resting her head against his chest, and, for the first time in what felt like forever, she smiled through the tears. The warmth of his arms was not just shelter from the storm anymore. It was home, and as the sun rose higher, painting the land in light, Lyra knew her story was no longer about loss. It was about survival, about mercy, and about the one human who had given her something stronger than hate. A new dawn had come, and she was not alone to face it.